Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Susan Presby, and it's an honor to be part of this ceremony and to see all of you here today. I want to thank you all for being here to be part of the 2011 Memorial Day Bridge Ceremony. Before I begin, let's deal with a few housekeeping matters. First, in respect to our speakers and the occasion, would you please turn off your cell phones and turn them on vibrate unless your job requires otherwise. If medical attention is needed, the ambulance is somewhere. I believe it's down here. In the unlikely event that an emergency arises and the ambulance needs to leave quickly, please step on the sidewalk as quickly as possible because they can be on their way. I know that it's warm, so if you're feeling faint and you're in need of water, we do have water here up on the bridge. I would at this time like to thank my fellow members of the Memorial Day group, Dan Greenlaw, Don Butson, and Bill Sargent, the Color Guard, the Rifle Squad, the LHH students who will be laying the wreaths, and Casey Grisham's Littleton High School band. Without all of you, this ceremony would not be possible. At this time, we will do the Pledge of Allegiance, and would anyone please in uniform, please render a military salute. Those not in uniform, please remove your caps. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic
which it
for which it
stands,
stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. At this time, I would like to introduce Pastor Robert Snyder of Littleton's First United Methodist Church, who will lead us in the opening prayer. Pastor Snyder is a veteran of the Air Force, and we thank him for being with us today.
Let us pray. In the quiet sanctuaries of our hearts and in connection with one another, let us invite into our presence this day the spirit of love, of hope, of compassion, of comfort and healing, of peace, all that which I call God. In the name of this Spirit, of this universal God, let us bow our heads in prayer. In a connection with this Spirit, as we remember, give thanks for, and mourn the loss of each man and each woman whose name is inscribed on this bridge, whose names are inscribed in so many bridges and cemetery markers around the world, whose names are, most importantly, inscribed on our hearts. Help us, O God, to remember that one man who was fully indwelled by this same spirit of sacrificial love, who once said, "There is no greater love than this, to lay down one's life for another." He did just that, for the love of the world and each one of us. We ask for comfort as we gather to affirm these men and women who sought to do exactly that, who loved with the greatest of love. May that same love dwell in us as we gather in thanks, and yet with broken hearts. Bring to us a very special, a very comforting sense of presence of our loved ones who died to change the world for the better. We gather not to glorify war or death, but to remember and to bridge the divide with them from hatred and strife to love and peace. May the water that we hear pass under this bridge be for us a reminder of the water of life and not of death. Life that is eternal when it is loved, lived, and given in your spirit, in love, in hope, in compassion, for comfort and healing, for peace. With the spirit or the heart of this spirit, we open our time of remembrance. Amen.
Thank you very much, Pastor Snyder. At this time, we would like to share with you a revered military honor, that of the riderless horse. VFW Rifle Squad, along with Mike Burns on the bagpipe, will accompany the horse led by Courtney Bashaw Piper. The riderless horse, or caparisoned horse, it's in reference to its ornamental coverings, which has a detailed protocol of its own, is a single horse without a rider, and the boots reversed in the stirrups, which sometimes accompanies a funeral procession. The horse follows the caisson carrying the casket. The custom is believed to date back to that of Genghis Khan, when a horse was sacrificed to serve the fallen warrior in the next world. The caparisoned horse later came to symbolize a warrior who would ride no more. Others suggest that this tradition hailed from over 1,000 years before Genghis Khan, when the Afghan people represented the Buddha as a riderless horse. In the United States, the caparisoned horse is part of the military honors given to an Army or Marine Corps officer who is a colonel or above. This includes the President by virtue of having been the country's Commander-in-Chief and the Secretary of Defense having overseen the armed forces. Abraham Lincoln was the first President of the United States to be officially honored by the inclusion of the caparisoned horse in his funeral cortege, although a letter from George Washington's personal secretary reported the President's horse was part of the President's funeral, carrying his saddle, pistols, and holsters. Traditionally, simple black riding boots are reversed in the stirrups to represent a fallen leader looking back on his troops for the last time. Can I have the people who are standing on the sidewalk directly in front of me move to the street so that the students who will be laying the wreaths will be able to have access to the plaques, please? And anybody who is on the sidewalk on my side, do the same thing. Thank you very much. In 2011, ironically, marks the 150th anniversary of the beginning of the Civil War. The end of this war is the genesis of the observance of Memorial Day. In fact, the first Memorial Day was officially observed exactly 143 years ago today, on May 30th, 1858, at Arlington National Cemetery. It was celebrated or observed by placing spring flowers on the graves of the veterans buried there. At that time, it was known as Decoration Day, but was renamed to Memorial Day in the year 1882. And so began a tradition that continues through today. Tradition is what message we want to convey to you today. Our ceremony today contains several traditional honors that are bestowed upon veterans that have made the ultimate sacrifice to preserve our freedom. Our hope is that by sharing these with you, the meaning behind these traditions we will make sure that these honors and this day continues forever. At this time, I would like to thank all the area and state officials who joined us today. The respect that you have shown our veterans and our war dead and our community is greatly appreciated. And now I would like to introduce Ms. Margie Seymour, Vice Chair of the Littleton Select Board, to present the Memorial Day Proclamation.
Thank you. Whereas the people of Littleton have a long and proud history of service to our country, and whereas Littleton citizens have given the supreme sacrifice of their own lives in times of war so that future generations could enjoy freedom and prosperity, and whereas the veterans of foreign wars commit countless hours to promoting recognition of fallen veterans, now, therefore, we, the Littleton Board of Selectmen, do hereby salute the service of all valiant veterans, and particularly those who have served in time of war on this special day of national recognition. Further, we recall, praise, and salute all residents of the Littleton area that have served our country so that we may always be free. This was signed and sealed on the 26th day of May 2011 by Chairman Ron Bolt, me, Vice Chairman Margie Seymour, and by Selectman Mike Gilman.
Thanks, Selectman Seymour. Now we will begin. I would like to thank Jennifer Carbonell and the LHS students in the color guard for being part of this moving part of the ceremony, the wreath-laying ceremony. As a thank you, for each student will be given a copy of the U.S. Constitution. We hope that this will be a constant reminder of this day and what the sacrifice of these men and others like them have given to each of you. I'd like to offer a special thank you to Senator Jeanne Shaheen, who graciously provided us with the copies of the Constitution. Let us begin. World War I, Private George Cassidy. World War I, Private Howard Shawnee. World War I, Corporal Harold Marsh. Civil War, Sergeant Isaac H. Kingsbury. Civil War, Sergeant Charles W. Batchelor. Civil War, Private George B. Messer. Civil War, Elisha Hines. Civil War, Private Samuel H. Little. Civil War, Obed A.S. Hatch. Civil War, Private Charles Farr. Civil War, Private George W. Burnham. Civil War, Captain William A. Moore. Civil War, Private Alanson E. Clausen. Civil War, Corporal Iris Harris. Civil War, Private Benjamin Q. Cass. Civil War, George S. Allen. Civil War, John C. Aldrich. Civil War, Corporal Loverin Gilman. Civil War, Private Jonathan Place. Civil War, Private Franklin A. Bowman. Civil War, Private Ira Bowman. Civil War, Private Guy W. Hill. World War I, Private William N. Perry. World War I, Lieutenant Briggs K. Adams. World War I, Private Armand J. Badger. World War I, Private Alba Brunel. World War I, Private Patrick McGough. World War I, Private George Findley. World War I, Louis Bob Corey. World War II, I apologize. World War II, Captain Paul G. Harris. World War II, Private First Class Arthur B. Knight II. World War II, Private Daniel A. Stevens. World War II, Private First Class Daniel H. Glove. Korea, Corporal Donald W. Lee. Korea, Private First Class George W. Stimson. Korea, Sergeant Alfred H. Sidney. Korea, Lieutenant Colonel Leland R. Dunham. Korea, Corporal Oswald E. Carbonell. War on Terrorism, Lance Corporal Stephen B. Wentworth. Civil War Medal of Honor, Private Joseph Kimball. Vietnam, Private First Class Yvonne E. Gerard. Korea, Sergeant Herbert A. S. Hesseltine, Jr. Korea, Sergeant Theodore J. Ledoux. World War II, Sergeant Theodore J. Ledoux. World War II, Private First Class Douglas D. Sherman. World War II, Private Jonas E. Norse. World War II, Second Lieutenant Oscar L. Gordon. Operation Iraqi Freedom, Specialist 4 Jeremy Francis Renier. Operation Iraqi Freedom, Sergeant D.J. Stenmuth. Thank you to the students. At this time, I would ask that Ms. Carbonell, Jennifer, are you here? I'd like to have Jennifer come up, and I would like to present her with the constitutions, which she will then present to the students, and I would like her to say a few words.
Being part of a community is hard work. Some gave all. For them, we're grateful. Lately, being part of the Littleton community has been difficult. Some people even contemplate moving. But it is days like this that remind me of how proud I am to be part of the Littleton community. On behalf of the youth of our community, thank you.
I've been informed I made a mistake. World War II Warner Lakeway. I apologize. I couldn't have said what Jen said any better. We are honored today to have a very special man as our guest speaker. Our guest speaker is Sergeant Major, U.S. Marine Corps retired Paul Chevalier. And I can tell you I had dinner with him last night, and he is an incredible man. Sergeant Major was born in Lowell, Massachusetts, the first son of 4 children born to Salby and Mary Chevalier. He attended Lowell parochial schools until moving to Chelmsford, Mass., where he graduated from Chelmsford High School. Upon graduation from high school, he enlisted in the U.S. Marine Corps. His active duty military career spanned the years of 1954 to 1985. Think about that. And included 3 tours in Vietnam. Chevalier earned many decorations, including Meritorious Service Medal, Navy Marine Corps Commendation Medal, and Combat V2 Combat Action Ribbon, Vietnam Service Ribbon with 7 Bronze Stars, Vietnamese Cross of Gallantry, and Vietnam Campaign Ribbon. In 1976, he was promoted to Sergeant Major. At the time of his retirement, Paul was a brigade sergeant major serving as senior enlisted advisor to the commanding general of the 2nd Marine Expeditionary Force Forward. Since his military retirement, Paul has been an active community leader in New Hampshire. As a life member of Portsmouth Emerson Hovey VFW Post 168, he has served 4 times as post commander, as well as VFW District 7 commander, the state commander of New Hampshire VFW, and the VFW state legislative chairman. He has been appointed as the chief of staff to the state commander for 2011 and 2012. Paul has served as president of the Central Veterans Council of Portsmouth, a member of the board of directors of the New Hampshire Veterans Home, and a member of the New Hampshire State Cemetery Council. Mr. Chevalier served as a military aide-de-camp to New Hampshire Governor Craig Benson, for which he was commissioned as a major in the New Hampshire militia. He has been an involved member in the State Veterans Advisory Council for more than a decade. He was appointed by Governor John Lynch to serve as New Hampshire's liaison to the National Museum of the Marine Corps in Quantico, Virginia. Sergeant Major Chevalier is active in the state political arena. Currently, he serves as a member of the VFW National Legislative Committee and has served on the board of directors of the VFW National Political Action Committee. Sergeant Major Chevalier has served as the Veterans of Foreign National Wars Inspector General in 2007-2008 and is currently serving as the Vice Chairman of the Veterans of Foreign Wars Budget Committee and is appointed to serve as the Budget Chairman for the National Committee for 2011 and 2012. He is married to Kathy Chevalier, who is an active member of the Ladies Auxiliary VFW. He is the father of 6 grown children and 2 stepsons, grandchildren, and 18, I think they're in 19. 19 is on the way for great-grandchildren, from what I've been told. And grandfather of 18 and great-grandfather of 6, but 7's on the way. He is a member of the American Legion, the Disabled Veterans, and the Marine Corps League. At this time, please welcome Sergeant Major Paul Chevalier.
Thank you for that kind, if somewhat lengthy introduction, Susan. I'm sure that by now everybody's out there hoping my remarks will be shorter than my introduction. But to all you visiting dignitaries, comrades and sisters of the veterans organizations, and patriotic Americans among you, especially those here in uniform currently serving our country, good afternoon. Today is Memorial Day. Why are we all here today? It would be difficult for me to go around and ask each one of you personally what your reason for being here today is. However, some of you, or probably most of you, have family members, neighbors, or friends serving in the military. Unfortunately, among the millions of Americans celebrating today, there are some who think it's just a holiday signaling the beginning of summer and beach season. Some consider it just another paid holiday, and of course all our youngsters are looking at it as the beginning of school break. While it is all of these things, the real reason that we observed this day for 145 years is to honor and pay homage to the 1.2 million Americans who have made the supreme sacrifice in defense of freedom. Some of you may have known someone who has made that sacrifice. Today, I'd like to tell you about 3 Americans who have given their lives for the defense of the freedom we enjoy today. While the popular notion is that those making the supreme sacrifice did so on the battlefield, we often forget that there are untold numbers that came home with wounds. Some wounds are physical and some you cannot see. Some of those that you can't see are what eventually was the cause of their death. Take, for instance, a young man, Alan Brudno. He was an Air Force pilot who was a graduate of MIT, had dreams of becoming an astronaut when he finished his service in Vietnam, and on 18 October 1965, his Phantom jet was shot down over Hanoi, North Vietnam. He was immediately taken prisoner where he spent 2,675 days, that's over 7 full years, in various prisons in the Hanoi area. He was released during Operation Homecoming on February 12, 1973. He was known among his fellow POWs as one of the most, or the strongest resistors of the communist attempts at his submission. As a result, he was beaten and tortured on a daily basis. A short 4 months after returning home, he took his own life. At that time, the military services did not know the depths of depression that PTSD could cause, nor did they know proper methods to treat it. At the time of his death, he was not eligible to have his name on the Vietnam Memorial Wall because of his suicide. Bredno's brother Bob fought for years to rectify that situation, and finally in 2004 was successful in having his name inscribed on the wall. Captain Bredno is but one example of a hero whose death was directly attributable to the war, as sure as anyone killed on the battlefield. Then we have another young American, Lieutenant Michael Murphy, a SEAL team leader in Afghanistan. Some of you may have heard about him because it's fairly recent. And I'll read to you, if I can take that indulgence, from the citation for his Medal of Honor. For conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of his life above and beyond the call of duty, as the leader of a special reconnaissance element with the Naval Special Warfare Task Unit, Afghanistan, on 27-28 June 2005, while leading a mission to locate a high-level anti-coalition militia leader, Lieutenant Murphy demonstrated extraordinary heroism in the face of grave danger in the vicinity of Asadabad, Kunar Province, Afghanistan. On 28 June 2005, operating in an extremely rugged, enemy-controlled area, Lieutenant Murphy's team was discovered by anti-coalition militia sympathizers. This was a group of Afghanistan shepherds that came upon these guys unexpectedly, and the team talked among themselves. They had only a couple of options. One was that they could kill these guys, but they didn't know for sure what side they were on, so they decided to let them go, resulting in them immediately going to the Taliban and revealing their position to the Taliban. As a result, between 30 and 40 enemy fighters besieged his 4-member team. Demonstrating exceptional resolve, Lieutenant Murphy valiantly led his men in engaging the large enemy force. The ensuing firefight resulted in numerous enemy casualties as well as the wounding of all 4 members of his team. Ignoring his own wounds and demonstrating exceptional composure, Lieutenant Murphy continued to lead and encourage his men. When the primary communicator fell mortally wounded, Lieutenant Murphy repeatedly attempted to call for assistance for his beleaguered teammates. Realizing the impossibility of communicating in the extreme terrain and in the face of almost certain death, he fought his way into open terrain to get a better position to transmit his call. This deliberate, heroic act deprived him of cover, exposing him to direct enemy fire. Finally achieving contact with his headquarters, Lieutenant Murphy maintained his exposed position while he provided his location and requested immediate support for his team. In his final act of bravery, he continued to engage the enemy until he was mortally wounded, gallantly giving his life for his country and for the cause of freedom. By his selfless leadership, courageous actions, and an extraordinary devotion to duty, Lieutenant Murphy reflected great credit upon himself and upheld the highest traditions of the United States Naval Service. And finally, every Memorial Day we can and should remember all the brave Americans in uniform who have laid down their lives so that we can live in freedom. It's not just a 3-day weekend, it's a time for remembrance. It's a time for thanksgiving that our country still has young men and women who are willing to risk all in this world for the sake of their friends. Today I'd like to focus on one more man, Major Douglas Zimbeck, known to Marines as the Lion of Fallujah. And I want to thank Dan Morse of the Washington Post for his memorable tribute to Major Zimbeck. He says, "They have to follow your orders," Morse writes of seasoned combat veterans. "They don't have to come to your funeral," but come they did. When Major Zimbeck's memorial service took place on May 15, 2007, at the U.S. Naval Academy Chapel in Annapolis, Maryland, 40 of his company men showed up. These enlisted men reported that their major always told them it was his privilege to lead them. That's what he learned when he was a midshipman at the Naval Academy. That's the lesson he was prepared to teach them when he graduated in 1995. Not only had Major Zimbeck served in Kosovo, he had pulled 4 tours in Iraq. 4 tours. At the funeral, Corporal Chad Borgman related to Dan Morse that the story of Major Zimbeck's racing down from a rooftop in the Iraqi city of Fallujah, he was trying to get to a U.S. Abrams tank to direct its fire at some insurgents who had pinned down his Marines. Corporal Borgman knew that normally the unit's commanding officer was not the one who would race through hostile fire, mount the tank, and tell its driver where to shoot. But the Lion of Fallujah always led from the front. He would never ask his men to do what he was unwilling to do. That's why a gate guard, another young Marine, said to Major Zimbeck's father when the older man drove on base at Camp Pendleton, California, "I was with your son in Fallujah, sir. He was my company commander. If we had to go back there, I would follow him willingly." "Never forget those who were killed," wrote Major Zimbeck of the fallen members of his unit, "and never let rest those who killed them." Typically, it was Major Zimbeck who called his men the Lions of Fallujah, and when he was cut down, they gave that title to him. An honor guard of Navy and Marine officers and enlisted bore him to his grave. In receiving him, Arlington National Cemetery had one more American hero sleeping in its hallowed grounds. The story of the Lion of Fallujah is one of thousands, and perhaps hundreds of thousands, that make this land the home of the free because of the brave. We need faith and we need courage. Let us thank God that we can commemorate once again this year the sacrifices of all those men and women in our armed forces who laid down their lives for their friends. Memorial Day is a day for prayer and reflection, and for the most solemn recollection. In remembering their deeds and paying homage to their memory, we preserve this last best hope of men on earth. I thank you all very much for listening to my comments today. May God bless all of you, and may God bless this great country of America.
Nobody ever leaves out. Thank you, Sergeant Major Chevalier, for reminding us what Memorial Day truly is about. On behalf of the Memorial Day group, I want to thank you for being here. I want to thank all of you for being here. And I don't mean thank you, which is what you say at the end of a party or what you say at the end of an event to be polite. What I mean is I truly, truly thank you for being part of this. Memorial Day is losing a lot of its significance. Jennifer touched on it, Sergeant Major Chevalier touched on it. But here in Littleton, as you can see on this beautiful, hot, sunny day, all these people that are standing on this bridge to honor our veterans, which makes me very proud to say that I live in Littleton, New Hampshire. We have and we will continue to pay our respects to those that have made the ultimate sacrifice. And the next comment that I'm about to make, I am gearing in particular towards our students, our young adults, the next generation of our leaders of this country. Let no vandalism of avarice or neglect, no ravages of time testify to the present or to the coming generations that we have forgotten as a people at the cost of a free and undivided republic. Those were the words spoken by General John Logan in May 1868 at the first observance of Memorial Day. So what does it mean? Wherever your life takes you, be ever mindful of the sacrifice of the veterans who have given their all, and take the time on any Memorial Day to remember and honor them wherever you are. My greatest hope that there really will be a day without war is also my greatest fear, that Memorial Day will fade into a distant memory. And it's our duty as citizens, both here and in the future, to make sure that that does not happen. As we near the end of our ceremony, just as at the end of a funeral, we will now have the flag folding ceremony, along with a reading of what the traditional meanings of each fold are. The flag folding ceremony represents the same religious principles on which our country was originally founded. The portion of the flag denoting honor is the canton of blue containing the stars representing the states of our veterans served in uniform. The canton field of blue dresses from left to right and is inverted when draped as a pall in a casket of a veteran who has served our country in uniform. In the armed forces of the United States, at the ceremony of retreat, the flag is lowered, folded in a triangle fold, and kept under watch throughout the night as a tribute to our nation's honored dead. The next morning, it is brought out and at the ceremony of reveille, run aloft as a symbol of our belief in the resurrection of the body. The first fold of our flag is a symbol of life. The second fold is a symbol of our belief in the eternal life. The third fold is made in honor and remembrance of the veteran departing our ranks, who gave a portion of life for the defense of our country to attain a peace throughout the world. The fourth fold represents our weaker nature, for as American citizens trusting in God, it is to Him we turn in times of peace as well as in times of war for His divine guidance. The fifth fold is a tribute to our country, for in the words of Stephen Decatur, our country in dealing with other countries, may she always be right, but it is still our country, right or wrong. The sixth fold is for where our hearts lie. It is with our heart that we pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The seventh fold is a tribute to our armed forces, For it is through the armed forces that we protect our country and our flag against all her enemies, whether they be found within or without the boundaries of our republic. The eighth fold is a tribute to the one who entered into the valley of the shadow of death, that we might see the light of day, and to honor Mother, for whom it flies on Mother's Day. The ninth fold is a tribute to womanhood, for it has been through their faith, love, loyalty, and devotion that the character of the men and women who have made this country great have been molded. The 10th fold is a tribute to Father, for he too has given his sons and daughters for the defense of our country since they were first born. The 11th fold, in the eyes of a Hebrew citizen, represents the lower portion of the seal of King David and King Solomon, and glorifies in their eyes the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. The 12th fold, in the eyes of a Christian citizen, represents an emblem of eternity and glorifies in their eyes God the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. After the flag is completely folded and tucked in, it takes on the appearance of a cocked hat, ever reminding us of the soldiers who served under General George Washington and the sailors and Marines who served under Captain John Paul Jones, who were followed by their comrades and shipmates in the armed forces of the United States, preserving for us the rights, privileges, and freedoms we enjoy today. And now Pastor Snyder will lead us in the closing prayer, followed by the 21-gun salute and the playing of taps.
I did spend 6 years as an officer in the Air Force. It was challenging, and I'm proud of it. But what's most challenging to me is my time in Maryland, where I tried to console families as I laid a loved one to rest in Arlington Cemetery. As I went with a couple of the doctors who were in my congregation, who served at Walter Reed Hospital and at Bethesda Naval Hospital, where I went on tour to see young men and women coming back from war with limbs that were missing. One with a head caved in because of a bomb that went off beside him. This is what we come to remember. This is what we come to bear hope that one day this will end. Hear the words of the psalmist. God is our refuge and strength, an ever-present help in trouble. Therefore we will not fear, though the earth give way and the mountains fall into the heart of the sea, though its waters roar and foam and the mountains quake with their surging. There is a river whose streams make glad the city of God, the holy place where the Most High dwells. God is within her. She will not fall. God will help her at the break of day. Nations are in uproar, kingdoms fall. He lifts his voice, and the earth melts. The Lord Almighty is with us. The God of Jacob is our fortress. Come and see the works of the Lord, the desolations that he brings on the earth. He makes war cease to the ends of the earth. He breaks the bow, shatters the spear, burns the shields with fire. Be still and know that I am God. This is the power over all other powers. This is what brings lasting peace. Oh God, may your river make glad this city, Littleton, and every city in this country and around the world this day. May this mighty Ammonoosuc and the names that bridge it be a constant reminder to us of that which makes wars cease to the ends of the earth. Hear our prayer for all who have died, who put the welfare of others ahead of their own. Give us hearts as loving as theirs. Grant us your comfort as we leave this place. In our hearts, may your presence be with us, your healing peace. Help us to go forth from here to shape and to make a world where all will put down the arms of war, the arms of every sort of strife, that we may live in the harvest of your holy life, your hope, your joy, your love, your peace. Hear our prayer this day, and in your mercy go with us. In the spirit of love, of hope, compassion, comfort, healing, and peace, all that we count on as our God. Go with us, we pray. Amen.
This concludes our ceremony. I would again like to thank all of you for being here and the respect that you have shown to our veterans. I would also at this time like to invite all of you to join us for a barbecue to share camaraderie and good food at the VFW. Thank you again.